Hi, lovely and darling viewers. It's Jen here at Check Her Joy, and this time I'm reviewing Born a Crime, Stories from a South African Childhood by Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah is the current host of The Daily Show. So this is his memoirs. They're a series of essays that explore his childhood and the time he spent growing up during apartheid in South Africa, which is really, really extreme, like racism and segregation going on there. So the stories in here are funny, like you would expect from a comedian telling them, but they can also be really in depth and intriguing and kind of exploring the social situations that's going on at the time. And some of them are slightly horrifying that these things actually exist and that they actually happened. So this is set up as a series of essays, and each essay has kind of this intro in front of it, which kind of sets the background about what's happening, which is cool. I liked that also. So less his personal experiences and more like, hey, this is how the government set up at the time. This is what happened historically. They're basically chronologically as he grows up for the most part. So Trevor was born to a white father and a black mother, which at the time was completely illegal. People in different races were not allowed to mate and intermingle and have sex. They weren't even allowed to live in the same areas of the country, which made it difficult because Trevor, because his parents were white and black, made him colored, which was a completely different race designation than either of his parents. And if they were found out, his parents could have gone to jail and Trevor could have been taken and put into like state custody, like go to orphanage, which would not have been fun for anybody. So there was a lot, like they risked a lot just to even have him. So he spent most of his childhood hiding. He couldn't even be seen out in public with either of his parents because they were different races. So he spent a lot of his time inside the house by himself because he was an only child. And sometimes he did go to the park and stuff, but they'd have to bring like a neighbor who was colored with them so that it would look like Trevor was actually the neighbor's child. Because if anybody thought that he was actually his mother's child, he would have been taken away and his mother would have gone to jail. So, not cool. And like they went through like this entire, it was kind of like this entire spy thing to get him into his father's house so he could see his dad sometimes. We also get to see like what happens when apartheid ends and the changes in society then. It became a little easier, especially it became a little easier, which is cool. He's also in this kind of gray area because he has this white father and this black mother, and there's basically three race distinctions in South Africa at the time. There were the whites, the coloreds who were kind of in the middle, and then the blacks. And then you've kind of got these subgroups of like Indians and other ethnicities that kind of get shoved into the other groups at times. He explains interactions that he had with like his mother's family and going to this all black community, and when he went to school, and sometimes he would hang out with the whites because there weren't any other coloreds. So for me, the most interesting part of this was looking at how apartheid works. It's not something that I know a lot about. Like I knew a little bit about apartheid going into this and Nelson Mandela, but it's not something we ever studied in depth in school, and it's not something I've ever tried to like research on my own. So this did a good job of explaining and breaking down what was happening and why it was happening, and even some of the history about how we got to this point and why the rules were put in place, which I thoroughly appreciated. So it's well explained. So it's interesting to see which friends he gravitates to in school, and trying to hang out with other people on like the neighborhood and stuff, and sometimes they reject him because he looks different. Even when he was living in like a colored neighborhood, that he still acted black or sounded white. We also see him kind of being a chameleon for part of it too. Like he learns other people's languages. Like there are a ton of different languages in South Africa at the time, like all the different native ones besides English and Afrikaans. So he learns other people's languages, and then they're more comfortable with him. Like, oh, you look different, but you talk like me, so I guess that's okay. Like it throws them off for a second and makes them stop and think. Through much of his childhood, he is just this hyperactive kid. And especially because he's an only child, he's getting into all these kinds of problems on his own. And so it was really amusing all the different pranks he pulled or things he did in school or talking back to teachers. There's one time when he set a house on fire, which is hysterically written, even though like kind of cringing, like, oh my gosh, you set a white person's house on fire because you were playing with matches. Like, what? So his mother, while being very rebellious and kind of fearless, she's also very religious and strict with him. Um, and so there's a few moments in here where he talks about like how he became like the second fastest, how he became like super fast runner, trying to always escape his mom, but then his mom was also super fast, um, which is like I loved the imagery of him like running through the neighborhoods trying to escape his mom, and everybody was like, "Oh, he must have done something bad again. Whatever. That's just normal life." There's also a time when he stole a car from his stepfather, and he decides to go to jail for it instead of trying to ask for help because he was more afraid of his mother and the fact that she might actually try to kill him. Um, so he spends a bit of time in jail, and we get to see kind of how the criminal system works too through that. So I really loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. I love all the antidotes, and I love all his anecdotes and stories, and just the way he tells them also is this perfect mix of like being serious that this is what's happening, but it's still entertaining and still informative and funny at times. So I really enjoyed it. It did take me a while to kind of read it because it does get heavy at times, and sometimes I just had to like put it away for a bit. I read the physical book, but some people are really raving about the audiobook because it is read by the author, that it's better. So passing that along. But definitely go check out Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. Yeah. Peace out. I love you guys and keep reading. Bye.